Hey everybody, it is Thursday, March 15th, 2018. Just to recap, you should have that take-home quiz that was started yesterday, completed by Friday, turned in. If you're not going to be here, you need to turn that in by the end of the day to the substitute. I do not want to have that turned in on Monday. Go ahead and finish it up. And today we're going to talk about Section 4 in Chapter 8, which is trigonometry. This is the beginning of your foundation for Algebra 2 with TRIG, pre-cal, moving on up into college. This is very crucial because it really bridges the gap between geometry and that Algebra 2 with TRIG course that you will eventually take. So what we'll be doing in this section, we'll be finding trigonometric ratios using right triangles, which the right triangles will be familiar with you because we've been working for a couple weeks on them. Then we'll use trigonometric ratios to find angle measurements in right triangles. Well, obviously one of them is going to be a 90-degree angle because it's a right triangle, but there will be two missing angles and or two or three missing sides. So to dive into it, I wanted to show you a acronym. I'll have to zoom out. I wanted to zoom out. It looks good. Before we even start any problems, I want to show you this phrase that will take you a very, very long way in this section. Go ahead and write this on the top right corner of your note taker. We're going to have 8-4 notes. And I want us to just write so ka toa. So ka toa. I know it sounds weird, but there is a mathematical connection that will be soon to come. Now, SOHCAHTOA, there's a lot of different ways to write it. I'm going to write it a different way. You can write so with a big S, and don't be scared. It's going to be a fraction, but it's going to be okay. We've got O over H. Okay? S is the big letter, little o over little h. Then we've got big C, little a over little h, big T, little o over little a. So, SOHCAHTOA, also known as SOHCAHTOA with fractions. Now, I like the fractions better. It helps me figure out what pieces of the triangle, whether it be an angle or a side measure or whatever, if it goes in the numerator, if it goes in the denominator. And let's just dive into what S and O, H, C, A, H, and T, O, A mean. Now, I'm going to keep this on the screen as much as I can here. I'm going to take this here calculator. I got my scientific calculator. And I'll tell you this now, students, if you don't have this, some version, it doesn't have to be this exact model of calculator, but if you do not have a calculator with trig functions on it, okay, the sine, cosine, and tangent, that's what sin, cos, and tan, those three buttons that you've forever wondered what the heck do those mean. It means sine, cosine, and tangent. And those are trigonometric functions that we will use to find parts of the triangle. We will find side lengths and we will find angles. Whatever is missing, we'll be able to find it. So, if you look at our formula, we've got S in the first spot for so. So I always like to underline it. I've got C in the first spot for Ka, and we've got T in the first spot for Toa. Sine, cosine, and tangent. That's why they're listed first. Now, here's why I like this one better, this version. First off, sine, cosine, and tangent, they stand out more. They're a larger letter. The way you write it this way, you know that's going to be sine. And this is going to be cosine. And this is going to be tangent. Now, where do these fractions come into play? I'm going to show you. So, depending on the angle measurement in the triangle, so using this specific triangle that's below us, below this formula right here, I've got N, M, and L. Now, N, M, and L are all vertices used in this triangle. I'm not really worried about the side lengths yet. I always want to locate the angle that I'm going to be working with. Now, in this triangle, you'll have a 90-degree angle. That's every single problem. I'm not worried about the 90-degree angle. I want to worry about angle N or angle L. So, for number one, it says we want to find the sine of L. And what I want to actually add to this note taker, go ahead and put parentheses around this L. It'll help you remember the significance of that letter. Now, L actually is representing a vertex and a angle measurement. Now, we don't have the numbers. We're going to figure that out, but baby steps first. Sine of L is going to be equal to a specific fraction. Now, where is this fraction going to be coming from? That is where our O and H come into play. Our A and H come into play. Our O and A come into play. Well, since we're working with sine, I'm going to look at SOH. S-O-H. Sine is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. We had a little announcement. I didn't want to get distracted there. So we have the opposite over the hypotenuse. That's where every time we have sine of any angle, it doesn't matter if it's L, M, K, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, it doesn't matter. If it's sine, we will always be working with the opposite and the hypotenuse. Well, opposite of what? I don't know what that means. Okay? The opposite of this angle, this letter, this vertex, it says sine of L, so I'm going to find the opposite side length of this angle measurement. Well, opposite of this side length would be 12. I'm sorry, opposite of this angle would be 12. So the side opposite of L, I can write 12. The hypotenuse is always the hypotenuse. That's what the beauty of it. So in this case, the hypotenuse is always opposite of that 90-degree angle. Don't get it confused with the opposite of angle L. The hypotenuse is always opposite of the 90-degree angle. Okay? So 37 in this case is going to be our hypotenuse. 12 is going to be our opposite. Now, all we have to do in this first section is express each trig function as a fraction and as a decimal to the nearest 100th. So I'm going to plug in 37 for my hypotenuse. And if your fraction can simplify, for example, if it was 12 over 36, it would simplify to 1 over 3 or reduce to 1 over 3. However, 12 over 37 doesn't make a nice pretty number, but it will make a decimal if you type it into your calculator. And what I'm doing is 12 divided by 37, and I get 0.324, repeating. The nearest hundredth, I'm only worried about the first two decimal places. So that's equal to 0.3. I'll put 3 decimal places. That's okay. 3 decimal places is fine. Cosine of L. Notice, we're still working with the same vertex L. Okay? The same letter. But cosine is represented by parentheses L. It's represented by A over H. So cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So just while I'm thinking about it, O means opposite, A means adjacent, and H means hypotenuse. Okay? So, sorry I got off on a tangent there. Little math joke. You don't get it. And you hate my silly jokes. Alright, so cosine of L is going to be the adjacent over the hypotenuse. Well, what does adjacent mean? It means the side length right next to the vertex, in this case, L. So, taking L, if I put a little dot right here, this is the angle measurement. I don't have the number yet, but it's okay. We'll get that further on in the note taker. The number that's not the hypotenuse, remember, he's opposite of the 90-degree angle. He's opposite. He's across from him. But he's right next to L. That's the adjacent. So I'm going to put an A there. Okay? So 35 represents A. Well, guess what? I can still use 12 and 37 if I need to for cosine, because we're still referring back to the same letter as we did in number 1. Number 1 used L. Number 2 used L. They're just using different trig functions. The first one was sine. The second one was cosine. So I've got this fraction. I'm going to write down my little fraction line. Who goes on top? I've got the adjacent on top according to my formula up here. The adjacent in this case is 35. Now, the hypotenuse is still the hypotenuse. It's 37. Now, this is actually very close to 1 because it's almost 37 out of 37. But taking my calculator, clear this out. I've got 35 over 37, also known as divided by, and I get 0.945945. Let's just round this to, I like using 3. Okay, I'm going to break the rules here. 0.946. I will not count off if you round to the nearest hundredth. Our instructions are asking to round to the nearest hundredth. So, whatever. Okay, it's up to you. I'm fine with it. I like 3 decimal places. The more decimal places you have, the more accurate you are, even though you're rounding. So, number 3, tangent of L. Well, guys, if I'm still talking about L, okay, if I'm still talking about this angle L in my triangle, I don't have to find anything else. I've already found the opposite. I already found the adjacent to L. I already found the hypotenuse. It's all relevant. We're still using the same angle L, so nothing is going to change, okay? I've found everything. Now I just got to plug and chug. So I've got equals. Well, going back to my little key over here, tangent is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. The opposite is 12. The adjacent was 35. So I've got the opposite, 12, over the adjacent, 35. Going back to my calculator. 12 divided by 35 equals 0.3428571429. I'm going to round that to 0.34, and I'll round that 2 up to a 3. 0.343. Kablam. Got it. I'm going to leave sine of n, cosine of n, tangent of n to you. Okay? However, I will give you a little bit more to help practice or kind of help nudge you along here. I'm going to use a different color. Let's go orange. I'm going to use orange. I guess some of you might be Miami fans. Congratulations. I'm talking about the letter N now. Let's go ahead and put parentheses around N. Just good practice. So I don't care about L anymore. I'm done. I'm on to a different color marker. Okay? Orange. Bam. It's on a different spot of the triangle. Well, guess what? If I move to a different spot on the triangle, I'm going to be moving the O, the A around a little bit. Guess what? H, he's still H. Always going to be the hypotenuse. The only thing that's going to happen is the O and the A are going to switch. Because guess what? We switched from L to N. That's going to switch where the opposite, and that's going to switch where the adjacent is. So, sine of N is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. The opposite of N, the side opposite, is 35. So now I'm going to put an orange O by the 35. And guess what? The hypotenuse, if you want to use a different color marker, still going to be the hypotenuse. But it's fun to have different colors on there anyway, so I put an extra H. So plug it back in. O now is going to be 35. My opposite is going to be 35. My hypotenuse is going to be 37. Now, some of you may be thinking, hey, this fraction showed up over here on number 2, and that's okay. But they're different trig functions representing different ratios from a different point in our triangle. So don't let it freak you out because you got the same fraction for a different problem. Now this will equal, if I get my calculator, 35 divided by 37, 0.945. I'll round it to 0.946. And I got my decimal. Cosine. Still working with N. Cosine, that is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And the hypotenuse is the hypotenuse. No big deal. The adjacent, who is that? It's not going to be the hypotenuse. It's not going to be the opposite. Well, process of elimination, that number right next to the vertex is going to be my adjacent. So, cosine is the adjacent over hypotenuse. Plug away the numbers here. I'm going to say 12 over 37. That calculator out. 12 divided by 37. 0.324324324. And finally, tangent. That is the opposite over the adjacent. Plug in the opposite of this angle. In this case, it's going to be 35. The adjacent is 12. Get that calculator. 35 divided by 12 equals 2.916666666, whatever. 2.92. How about that? 0. Oh wait, not 0 point. Silly me. 2.92. Okay? Now, your turn. Okay? I want you to take 5 minutes. We'll say 5 minutes. Take 5 minutes to do 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay? Remember, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. Plug in your numbers based on the angle A for these problems, and plug in your numbers from the vertex. There's that other top again. B. So in the orange, you'll have A. In the green, you'll be looking at angle B. Adjacent over hypotenuse, opposite over adjacent. Okay, so if you want to color code, that's great. I think it'll help you with the notes and going back and looking at stuff. It's up to you. It's your notes. I don't care if you use color codes or pencil or whatever. I'm not grading you based on that. This is a note taker. But right now, I want you to go 5 minutes, work by yourself, and we'll get back after someone keeps time. Okay? Somebody be a leader and keep timer for us. 5 minutes. Ready, set, go. All right, so hopefully you guys kind of talk with a neighbor, check each other's work, etc., etc. If you have any questions about 7 through 12 on the note taker, go ahead. You can take pictures of it, post it on Google Classroom or Remind 101, and I'll let you know if you're correct. No big deal. Remember, you can always message me on those apps if you have any individual questions. If you don't feel like asking a neighbor, no big deal. Now, guys, ladies, gentlemen, it is the easiest part of this section. You are going to laugh when you see this. Find the values of each, round each decimal to the nearest 10,000th. 10,000? Huh? How many places is that? Well, 1, 2. We got ones, tens, hundreds, tens, hundreds, thousands. 10,000, there it is, yeah. So, got the ones place, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. Basically the fourth decimal place, so round, which means you're going to be looking at this spot and rounding up to that fourth decimal place. Just a reminder. So, moving on. Here's the easy part. By the way, just a friendly reminder, if you do not have calculators with trigonometric functions on them, you will not be able to succeed on this test. So make sure you let me know if you need some extra help getting your calculator, and we'll take care of that issue. So sine of 30. First thing I want to do is I want to double check my calculator to make sure that we are in the correct mode. And if you look at this button right here, we've got mode, and I'm going to scroll down to radian. You see that? It's flashing radian. I don't want radian. I want to move to degree and click enter. Now I'm in degree. I'm in the mode that I want to use for trig and finding missing side lengths and angles of our right triangle. So sine of 30. Yep, you guessed it. You push the sine button. Let's zoom out just a little bit here. This might help me. Here we go. Push that sine button, and then I type in the value, 30. This is representing that ratio. Theta is also used a lot once you get into algebra 2 at trig, pre-cal, etc. But we're just going to focus on typing it in correctly. Make sure, once again, we are in the correct mode. Go into mode. Make sure you are in degree right here. But we're good to go. So sine of 30, push enter. 0.5, also known as a half. I know you guys do not like fractions, even though fractions are your friends. You get 0.5 as the decimal, leave it there. I'm not able to round to the nearest 10,000 because it's 1/2, no big deal. Moving on. Cosine of 56. I got cosine 56, enter. 0.55919, etc., etc. I'm going to round to the 10,000th place, which is that 1, so I'm looking to the right. 9 will round this one up to a 2. So I've got 5592, 0.5592. Tangent, 22. Type in trig function, it says tan. We've got 22, push enter. 0.40402. Now, if you round, this guy is not going to be able to round up, so in reality you're going to have 4040, but this 0 is not really needed. I'm not going to take off if you leave them there, but ACT purposes, they're probably going to leave it in this form because they usually leave off that 0 at the end. It's not necessary. Flip on over. Now, your assignment. You may start this assignment now. However, you can wait until tomorrow. I'm guessing there's probably 10 or so minutes left in class. Go ahead and get started on at least number 1. Notice it wants sine, cosine, tangent of J, and it wants sine, cosine, tangent of L from this triangle. Number 2, sine, cosine, tangent of J from this triangle, sine, cosine, tangent of L from this triangle here. It says for 1 and 2, express the ratio as a fraction and as a decimal to the nearest hundredth, the second decimal place. So make the fraction, make the decimal. once you get the rhythm of it, you'll start flying through these problems. Take your time. Remember, you can always double check, ask me questions on Remind 101 and or Google Classroom. And down here, this is the easy part of the section. Just typing in your trig function in your calculator, the value that it wants to type in, and then furthermore, you must turn this in on Friday by the end of the class period. So if you want to go ahead and get started, I would. Substitute, please encourage my kids to finish up the assignment or get started on it. Ask each other questions. They can work together. Have it turned in by the end of class. So Friday, if you want to put this off by Friday, you can work in class on Friday, but you're risking it. Make sure it's complete when you turned it in. Okay, it will be graded for accuracy. If you have any questions, ask me on Google Classroom. Just have a good day. We're done.